Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
This is my boomstick.
Here's Johnny.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Righteous! Righteous! Yeah!
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Good morning, Vietnam!
Houston, we have a problem.
The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
All right.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Those Film Nerds podcast. My name is Will Spalding. I'll be your host as always today. And it's been a couple weeks, but as always, I'm joined by the co-host that you hear often, sjdierberger. Sam, how are you?
I'm not too shabby. How are you, Will? I stole your phrase from the beginning. Not too shabby.
Not too shabby. Well, I'm not too shabby as well.
Around a lot.
But
yeah,
we missed out on last week. To our defense, we were both absurdly busy, and there were no movies anyway. So we did. Well, Sam, you were just saying, what was it, 6 months that we did straight, or every week straight? So that's not a bad record. We got it. We got one sheet in there.
Yeah, we've been doing this since early May, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Now we're in
every week.
December is tomorrow, so we allowed ourselves one day, and it was extenuating circumstances where there was nothing out anyway. So, but
well, our production crew was furious about it.
Yeah, they didn't get paid for 2 weeks.
They were furloughed.
Yeah, there are thousands of unemployed people from Those Film Nerds headquarters that really rely on our income. So, on our revenue generating machine that is this podcast. So it sucks for them, really, but
right.
We're still sitting fine in our mansions on top of our hills. So
yeah, we're doing well. We're doing okay.
But Sam, with all of that in mind, I think that there's not much industry news unless you find something. But what is the movie of the week that we will be talking about?
This week we will be talking about Hillbilly Elegy.
I thought your mama was going to be all right. Be happy. I know I could have done better. But you got to decide. You want to be somebody or not.
There we go, Hillbilly Elegy. It's definitely a movie that I heard about before we really get into it. I heard about this movie, I don't know, early summer, late spring, and kind of got excited by the names attached to it with Glenn Close and Amy Adams, and of course Ron Howard helming it. And I've been anticipating for a while, so it was good to finally see it. Good, bad, or otherwise, really. Well, that's to be determined. But
right,
Sam, did you find any industry news, or are we just talking Hillbilly Elegy tonight?
Well, I found something that's of note, I suppose. This is from Variety, obviously the film section. Kind of delves into real world economics. I know how we both love economics, but it says
Yes,
it says this is from Variety. Movie theater owners applaud Senator Schumer for championing cinemas to save our stages act. And it says that Robert De Niro, Viola Davis, Al Pacino, Jennifer Lawrence, and more Hollywood stars have expressed gratitude to Senator Chuck Schumer for advocating on behalf of the movie theaters and, quote, working to ensure the survival of New York's critical arts and culture institutions. Schumer has been a vocal supporter of the bipartisan Save Our Stages Act, which would provide $15 billion in grants for arts and entertainment venues. He recently extended the relief package to include independent movie theaters. So, we're in Minnesota, and we're both back in Minnesota now, and we have just undergone a new, I guess, wave of restrictions, and movie theaters near us are going to have to shut down again. And this is kind of, part of a larger conversation, but I suppose, Will, how many movie theaters do you think are going to be able to survive these next few weeks?
Oh gosh. The one closest to me has been closed since the original shutdown. It didn't even reopen when they could. They did some outdoor screenings late at night, kind of like a drive-in, but they've been closed for a while. So I was really looking forward to getting back, if not even that one, go to the next town over, getting back to seeing some movies. We're starting to get some releases. Nomadland with Frances McDormand comes out Thursday. So we were going to start to get some things, there's some Christmas releases, but that doesn't seem like it's going to happen, at least here in Minnesota. Maybe in other places it will, but that's an interesting question. How many theaters will survive? We can assume that all small theaters, like family run, or it's owned by one person, not like an AMC or anything like that, or a Cinemark or whatever, but like a privately run theater, we can assume a large 75-80% of those to close down, just because they need to be open. They need to have profits to stay in business, because there isn't a corporate to support them. So a large majority of those will close. But even like I said AMC just a couple seconds ago. Well, like AMC's not doing so hot right now either. So
right.
Gosh, it's impossible to say really, but I mean, we will see theaters close, which is really sad. And that will, we've talked about this before, but that will shift how people consume films and movies. It probably will be more to the straight to on demand or straight to streaming services like we're talking tonight. Straight to Netflix or straight to Amazon Prime. Obviously we've been doing a lot of those, but it'll be interesting to see how these next couple months definitely play out. You were saying we're in Minnesota, and we have a 4-week, now it's down to 3. It was originally 4, a week has passed. So it's down to 3 weeks of everything shut down. We'll see if it opens back up. I doubt it, but if it doesn't open back up and we have another 2-month delay, then I would say a lot of theaters are going to close.
Yeah, and it's interesting looking at this article in particular, because they put together a map of each U.S. state and what the restrictions are for cinemas in each state. And it's only Washington, Oregon, New Mexico, Minnesota, Illinois, and Michigan that have mandated to shut down theaters completely. Most it's looking like are looking at, kind of like they're open, but social distancing put in place, or they have some sort of capacity limit within the cinema. So anywhere from 20 to 50%. But yeah, it's really interesting to see the how different states are approaching this, especially in a movie theater, which is, depending on the film, it could be incredibly socially distant, or it could be, just an absolute, super spreader. So it's a very interesting place that cinemas are in right now.
That's a good point, because I know you and I have definitely been to theaters. Just off the top of my head, we went to Joker together last year, and that was packed. But other movies, aren't very full. So I see no reason why it can't open up. And I would guess if you were to walk into a theater on a Tuesday night, the theater is at 5% capacity. And that's without restrictions. So I'm sure you'd be fine. But
right.
Yeah, you're right. So Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. I don't think we'll like the result, but
No,
I guess
certainly not.
we won't know. And it seems like you said like 6 states there. It seems like we drew the short end of the stick there by living in Minnesota.
Yeah, like literally 6 states. The rest have probably like 50 to 70% capacity limits.
Right.
So,
well, and that's even interesting too. You were saying capacity limits. Most theaters still won't be able to make business off of that because a lot of theaters need those theaters to be packed in order to make money. They need people to be coming out and buying concessions. So even theaters that have people in attendance still might be hurting from all of this.
right, yeah. I mean, the one near us is a special case actually because it is independently owned, but it's about as large as an AMC or even larger.
Yeah.
But we do forget that most of like the independently owned theaters, you're not talking about 15 screens. You're talking about maybe 2 or 3 screens.
Yeah.
So they need all 3 of those to be packed every single night in order to be profitable. And that's a difficult thing to pull off.
Absolutely. Well, what do you think? I kind of gave my thoughts, but what do you think this means for consumption moving forward? Do you think it's 100% video on demand, or do you think it's still theaters? What are your thoughts there?
I think there will be well, I mean, if this thing with Chuck Schumer, I'm sure you can get other politicians on board to have some kind of specific bill to help out the I guess cinema industry specifically, and even also the stages, the theaters, like the playhouses, help those out. I think they should be okay financially for the time being, just to get through the pandemic. I think some kind of deal will be struck in Congress, but after that, there will probably be some sort of wave of people just looking to get out of the house, particularly after we get a vaccine, hopefully sometime early next year. But then I think the trend will continue downwards, as we've talked about numerous times before on the show. There's still, there's still a dying trend within the theater industry. And like we said, I think it will always exist. It just won't be as mainstream as it has been in the last few decades.
Fair enough. I think you're probably right with that. With what you just said, is it'll still be around, but not as common. And that was even tending to be, or that was going to be the case even without the pandemic or without COVID going around. So I think
right.
I think this is almost just COVID is almost an accelerator. But yeah, I think theaters will still be around. But do you have anything else on this topic or anything else before we just go into Hillbilly Elegy?
I don't think so. Let's talk about Hillbilly Elegy.
Oh, well, one more thing I just thought of. I think
sure.
For the theaters, I think the best way that they can still be relevant is to probably also decrease their prices. Just get people out there is the main point, rather than having a $15 ticket, decrease your prices. I mean, I know a lot of theaters listen to us, so they should be hearing this, but that's just it's hard to I mean, that's the whole point of the video on demand, is I can buy it for a night for $30, but if I have a family of 5, going to the theaters costs $100 because of tickets and then concessions. So I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, and I think I've mentioned this before, but I really think there's 2 primary paths forward for theaters, and I think one is as I said before, people like us who enjoy, the feeling of the cinema, the atmosphere of it.
Absolutely.
And we'll go and see, just kind of maybe more lower budget dramas at a theater just for the artistry of it, right? The other part of it is kind of what we've seen with the Avengers movies and the Star Wars movies particularly, is this idea of like event cinema.
Right.
It's going to be much more of a almost a kind of a sports like atmosphere. You go in opening night, you get like a souvenir t-shirt for $30 and you get your picture in front of the stormtrooper. You walk out with like a souvenir, like popcorn bucket or something.
Sure.
It's all of that.
It'll be like going to the theaters in the 40s again. With
yes, it will be an event. Yeah.
No, I think that could definitely be a trend for sure. But with that being said, let's get into Hillbilly Elegy.
You've always got a reason. It's always someone else's fault. Some point, you're gonna have to take responsibility, or someone else is gonna have to step in. Who? You?
It's actually us. Sam and I are gonna step in. Or Amy Adams. Don't worry, Amy. We'll take over from here. But yeah, so Hillbilly Elegy. I mentioned earlier that I had some anticipation for this movie. Sam, what were your anticipations, or did you even know this was coming out? Give me some background. Or what do you think of Ron Howard, the director?
Well,
or
I mean, I had heard about this project actually not because of Ron Howard.
Okay.
I was surprised to find out that Ron Howard had directed this movie. I was aware of the project because of Amy Adams and Glenn Close.
Right.
And I was moderately excited for it because, I guess in the actress race of the actresses working today, I would say that Amy Adams is the best, probably.
She's up there for sure.
And I was surprised that Ron Howard had directed this project. I didn't find out about that until about 2 weeks ago or so when I was reading up on it. So, yeah, I mean, overall, well, I guess first, I guess how I want to frame this first is, how do you feel about Ron Howard? Because obviously a prolific director.
Absolutely. Howard is someone that I find very interesting. I mean, obviously he's been in the, not just directing game, but in the industry for so long. I mean, people forget, but he was in the Andy Griffith Show as a little kid. So, I mean, this guy has been around. He's done a lot, obviously, with his early work being acting. Obviously I just mentioned the Andy Griffith Show, but and George Lucas's American Graffiti played a big role in that. And then in his later career, transitioned to directing and producing. And yeah, I think, late 90s, early 2000s, Ron Howard is very good. From Apollo 13 and A Beautiful Mind, is fantastic. He's hitting triples and maybe a home run or two. But then he had a weird phase. He kept on. He did that weird thing with Jim Carrey and The Grinch. That didn't need to happen. He did those weird, I think, mystery movies with Tom Hanks, like Angels and Demons and
the Da Vinci Code.
Da Vinci Code. Yeah, there's 3 of those. And then he made arguably the worst Star Wars movie with Solo. So he's just had a weird career, albeit still a successful one. I mean, obviously he still keeps getting work and he still gets scripts handed to him. So he's doing something right. And I think this Hillbilly Elegy, this could have been a return to form for him. You know, this kind of source material definitely has potential to be very good. Well, we'll get into that if it was very good or not. But I think this definitely could have been his coming back party. What are your thoughts on Mr. Howard?
Yeah, I was looking at his filmography the other day. His first directing job was called Grand Theft Auto in 1977, which I've never heard of, but it's such an eclectic mix of genres and film. I mean, he went from Apollo 13 to a Mel Gibson thriller called Ransom, to this like bad, like, I guess, Truman Show knockoff called Ed TV. And then it was How the Grinch Stole Christmas in 2000. And then A Beautiful Mind in 2001. Like, those are like 5 movies that are completely sporadic, just
Right.
all over the place. And he's almost like, I wouldn't call him exactly a Spielberg in that way, because Spielberg generally has a solid repertoire and eye for these things, whereas I would say that Ron Howard is a little more all over the place in terms of quality. But he definitely has that Spielberg like I guess ambition to direct about a movie a year on average, and kind of look for interesting projects, I suppose.
Right, and kind of what you're saying, he does a lot of different things. He's doing everything from rom-coms with Tom Hanks to sports movies like Rush, and political dramas like Frost Nixon and Star Wars, and then obvious Oscar bait movies like A Beautiful Mind, and then more sports movies, Cinderella Man being a boxing movie, and he's just all over the board. So I think he definitely has a lot of talent. Maybe just not the best decision maker. Maybe we should have a committee that should okay what movies Ron Howard can make. Ron wants to make a movie. Comes all right, Ron, come into the office. Like, hey, I'm looking at this Jim Carrey movie, live action Grinch. Nope. We're gonna skip that one, Howard. Go make A Beautiful Mind. So it is just interesting. You are right, but yeah. So I guess I kind of want to transition as, there was a lot of when I first discovered this movie, there was a lot of talk around Amy Adams and Glenn Close are finally going to get their Oscars. Amy Adams is going to be lead, Glenn Close is going to be supporting. They're each going to get an Oscar, so it's gonna be fantastic. The world's going to be great because each of them have like 7 nominations and not a single win. Yeah. Which of course made me upset because I know Saoirse Ronan is in a movie this year and I want her to win. So I wanted to hate this movie. I was just like, I'm going to hate this movie because it's going to take down my girl. But
really?
But
Saoirse's, how old is Saoirse? Saoirse's like
26.
26?
Yep.
She's got so much time.
Oh, I know. I just wanted her to win one. Just give her Oscar.
She's gonna win one. Like,
anyway,
be patient.
I know. But so I was expecting this to be some sort of big thing. Like maybe it's going to be nominated for Best Picture. I mean, I didn't think it would win, but it'd be in contention. And it maybe 3 weeks ago, the Rotten Tomato score comes out on this movie, and it's like 29%. And I was just baffled. I was like, what happened here? What went wrong? Was it Howard? Is he not? Has he lost his edge? Has he lost his touch? Or is it just the script terrible? What happened here? And I guess let's transition into our review here. Is Sam, what are your general thoughts? What did happen here? Why is the Rotten Tomato score so low? Do you agree with that? What are your general thoughts?
Well, I mean, I try to make it a policy not to look at Rotten Tomato scores.
I try to not let it
before-
influence me. Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
well, I look at it afterwards, right? And when I watched this movie, I thought, okay, that was all right. And then I was like, I think Rotten Tomato score, because it does have kind of an Oscar baity edge to it. I would think that,
sure.
the Rotten Tomato score would be in, the 60s, 70s, maybe early 80s. And it was like 29%. And I was like, well, I don't understand that. I really don't. Because, there's nothing here that is just bad. I don't think there's anything particularly terrible about this movie that justifies 29% on Rotten Tomatoes. I can understand not liking it. I can understand several critics seeing through the Oscar bait, facade of this film. But, 25% it is now. So I don't understand the hate. I thought it was an okay movie. I don't think it was anything special, but certainly not that bad.
Sure. I didn't love this movie. I definitely have my quarrels with it. I agree with you though. I don't think it's 25% bad. I don't think a quarter of the people found that, obviously they did, but if you would have asked me what is the Rotten Tomato score of this movie after seeing it, I would have said at least above 50. And which is just shocking to me that it's so low. And I guess maybe we can get into why, but I think people generally found Amy Adams to be bad, which I don't think was the case. I mean, is she as good as she is in Arrival in Hillbilly Elegy? Probably not. But was she really bad? I don't think so. So that what if anything, Sam, do you think is bad in this movie?
Yeah, I think. Well, we got to separate this by saying, what I think is bad about the movie is probably not what the average critic is saying about what's bad about the movie.
Fair
you know
enough.
what I mean?
Yep. That's fair.
Because I'm looking at some of the critic reviews, and these seem to be all about kind of, I guess kind of like a socio-political criticism of the film, which is not something I would critique about it. I would say that Gabriel Basso.
Yeah, Basso, I think.
The lead who plays JD, I thought his performance was really stiff. I didn't think he was very believable. He's obviously a very, his character is supposed to be a little more complicated. He's kind of pulled between two worlds, two lives. He wants to be something, but he can't betray his family. And he's dealing with all these stressors in life. And I just wasn't buying it, his performance. I just didn't think it was particularly noteworthy. So that was my main critique.
I'm 100% with you on that.
Yeah. But I'm looking at the Rotten Tomatoes, the critics' short reviews, and it's saying things like it's a prestige slog full of flat, sneering caricatures. Howard thinks he's making an inspirational tale. He doesn't realize it's an American horror story. Suffice it to say, unless you're silly Billy, you'll see through the pantomime. This fight ain't fair. It's been rigged. I don't even know what that means.
I just kind of, so yes, this movie kind of has like an inspirational undertone to it. And I don't know if I agree that it should, but I also understand that there is a source material here and that this story is true. So that I'm assuming, I haven't read the book written by the actual J.D. Vance, but I'm assuming that there is an inspirational undertone to that book. So maybe, I guess, in defense to Ron Howard, he's probably staying true to that. I don't think it fits for this story, but I can kind of see where the Rotten Tomato critics are coming from. But at the same time, I can also defend Ron Howard in a sense. I think my main issue with it is, I should say I thought most of the performances, aside from the lead, Gabriel Basso, whatever, I thought all of them were good. I liked Amy Adams. I thought Glenn Close was very good. I thought Haley Bennett, who plays the sister, who we have seen in The Devil All the Time earlier this year, I thought she was pretty. I thought she was pretty good. I liked her. I thought a lot of the set design was very nice. Aside from being dirty, it was visually appealing. It looked good. But one of my main problems was in the first timeline, or when he was a kid. I was wondering how many times is this kid going to have a realization or like a turnaround in his life? Because it was probably 4 times where he realized something and then changed something about himself. And I at the 4th time, I was getting tired of it. I was like, stop this. We need to just stop. There's too many things of him realizing something and then a montage of him doing something. I was getting tired of that. I think that was my main criticism, is that Howard, or the script, was retreading old ground and going back to the well a lot of the times with the scene selections, or there are too many, one or two too many montages that we just didn't need in it. But what?
Yeah,
What would you say? What would you say is some of the things you liked?
Well, I mean,
that was done well.
Look, the script aside, I think that, I guess the actual content of the scenes aside, I think that the narrative structure is actually pretty good, because you're seeing I actually really like it when movies do this. You're seeing I guess, current problem that the protagonist is dealing with in the past, right? It goes into flashbacks of problems that seem smaller at the time, but are paralleling the current big problem, big solution, right? And it's actually really effective when movies do this. So I really liked that structure. But I would agree with you in terms of the I guess actual content of what were in those scenes. Individually, I think the scenes work okay. I think they're all right. But again, it's the same structure in each scene over and over again. Like you said, he keeps going back to the well, so to speak. So yes, it was just kind of a repetitive, I guess, way to go about storytelling. But yeah, the narrative structure itself was quite good.
Agreed. I liked that. I like that we saw both timelines happening at the same time, and kind of like you said, how there's a problem in his actual time, and he's flashing back to when he was a kid. So yeah, that was nice to see. It was the narrative structure, like you said, was enough to keep me engaged and wondering as we would flash back and forth what's going to happen next. So yeah, I thought that worked well. I think one thing that the movie did do right was the dynamics between JD and each one of his, we'll say 3, maybe even 4 main relationships, being his mom, grandma, girlfriend, and sister. I thought all the relationships, or the interactions within those relationships, were all good. That is one thing that I thought was done well, and maybe that's an attribute to most of the performances within it, being that most of them are pretty solid. So I think that was my main takeaway from the good, is that that the interactions between the characters were well done.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that I thought that the first three you mentioned, his mom, his girl, were all really fleshed out. I thought that the relationship with the girlfriend was pretty one-dimensional and not particularly interesting, just because the girlfriend is not that interesting of a character. She's kind of just there.
We don't know a lot about her. You're right.
We don't know really anything about her other than she's a girlfriend. And she's Indian, which was apparently a major point of concern for the family.
For Amy Adams. He was quite concerned with that for a second. Yep.
She was quite concerned. But yeah, other than that, there just wasn't much to the girlfriend. There is one scene where, this isn't a spoiler or anything, but there's a scene where she's sitting in because they're law students. And this is just hilarious to me for some reason. They're sitting in a room and JD calls her and she's discussing law with the fellow law students in a room, but they're talking about the most broad philosophical applications of law possible. They're like, so really there is no objectivity to law. And it was okay, the person who wrote this script clearly doesn't understand how law school works. No one in law school talks about that. It was the equivalent of being what would doctors talk about? Doctors are sitting there talking about the Hippocratic Oath or something. It was just terrible dialogue writing on that front. But
that is funny. I didn't really notice that, but I definitely believe it. I know what scene you're talking about too.
Strange.
The screenwriter. I should say the screenwriter, Sam, you'll like this. They've wrote some of your favorite movies. Her name is Vanessa Taylor. Vanessa Taylor has wrote such gems as Hillbilly Elegy, Hope Springs, which I'm not aware of, but Divergent, great movie.
Oh, there it is. Oh, I see it now.
Oh, and your favorite movie of 2017, The Shape of Water.
Oh my God. It makes sense. That checks out.
But you love that movie, and you'll go to bat and defend its greatness too.
Well, yeah, it's affectionately referred to as Grinding Nemo by me.
That is funny. Oh gosh, that's good. Well,
but we should talk about this dialogue in Hillbilly Elegy, because there's another scene I'm thinking of where I thought the dialogue was quite poor, and that was, I'm talking about the dinner scene specifically, with where he's at that I guess meet and greet with high profile lawyers.
Oh,
and they're sitting
near
down.
the beginning.
Yeah. And I'm like, all the lawyers are being just completely rude and condescending to him. And it is a real story, but there had to be some embellishment there, because it's just,
Sure.
Some of that dialogue was just not realistic.
Yeah, I agree with you. There were points where I was like, there's no way anyone would say that. I was thinking that in my head while watching it. You're right. It wasn't realistic at points. So, I understand. It's like, I guess the easiest way to describe it is it's cheap writing. It's a, for the other scene you mentioned with the lawyers talking about law, it's a cheap way for someone to write about what lawyers would talk about by not knowing anything about what lawyers talk about, or to be lawyers. And it's a cheap way for there to be a plot point that he kind of makes it out bad with the lawyers, because he puts them in their place, even though they deserved it, sure, but no one would ever say that. So I do know what you're saying.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I mean, at points it felt like crunch for time almost. It's like, okay, we have to develop this plot point. very quickly. So
I'm interested to see what you have to say about this, because it wasn't effective for me. Did you care at all about JD getting this interview or getting this job? Because that was a major plot point, and they kept going back to it. Like, are you going to make it in time? Or his sister would ask him, or his mom would ask, "Well, when's your interview?" Or whatever. I never really cared about that. What were your thoughts? It was a major plot point, and it just didn't really matter to the story, really.
well, I felt like I would care more about it if the tone they set at the beginning wasn't so much like, because there's a scene at the beginning where he's sitting down with like his counselor, his financial aid advisor, and he says, my tuition is too expensive. I need some kind of contingency plan, right? We need to figure this out. And the counselor says to him, well, you're going to get one of these internships this summer and it's going to be okay. You're going to be able to pay for it that way. And he says to her, no, I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to get it. So right away, we've already resigned like our protagonist to, oh, he's not going to get the job anyway, because he doesn't believe he's going to get the job. Right. So at that point, the audience is like, who cares? Who cares if he gets the job or not? What's the big deal? So that was part of the problem. And you're right. I didn't really think about it during the film that much.
It just seemed out of place to me. He this whole time when he's in Ohio taking care of his mom or figuring things out, then which was good. There's a lot of drama and suspense, almost like what's going to happen or what happened in the past, what led him to be here. And then it was like, so when's your interview? Like, it didn't transition well. It felt out of place to me. So I just thought I'd mention it. It was just as little things like that in this movie that kind of turned me away from it. Like you said, it felt at times a little unrealistic. So I think you're right. We say this all the time, I feel like, but if the script were just a little bit tighter, I think this could have been a lot better. Mm-hmm. And now I guess I want to ask you, what do you think this means for Ron Howard? Do you think he can make a good movie anymore, or are you done with him? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think he can make a good movie. I don't think this is a setback for him. Certainly, because like I mentioned before, I consider this movie to be all right. It's not devastating. I, unlike you, think that Solo, a Star Wars story, was not too shabby. So, I mean, I don't think he's on a decline here.
Okay.
But he's how old is Ron Howard? Ron Howard's 66.
He's getting up there. Right.
He's getting up there, but he's, like I said, he's like a Steven Spielberg-like figure. He's going to be working until the day he dies. I don't think he's going to retire. So, I think he'll come out with some new project. I'm not sure if we know what he's got up next, but
another Tom Hanks thriller, the fourth Da Vinci Code movie. We can only hope, right?
Oh, please. I need it.
That's all I want.
We should actually check those movies out because I'm at least interested. But
yeah, let's see. What's he have on the docket? Just kind of looking around. Give me 1 second here. Also, I guess I did want to say, like, technically, this movie is pretty well made. From I mentioned a little bit earlier, like set design and cinematography is nice, and it's well made on a technical standpoint. So I think that just plays into the fact, like, I guess I was just a little confused on how low this Rotten Tomato score was, just because of I thought it was fairly well made. I mean, we've mentioned our negatives, but I guess I was just I thought it was well made on a technical aspect too.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. It's There was nothing there. I mean, it wasn't staggering. Like, it wasn't a staggering cinematography achievement.
No,
But,
no.
You know, at the same time, I mean, it was, you know, I went along with it. I thought it was good. You know, again, as we mentioned so many times, we are not, we don't have an eye for technical cinema, I suppose. Right. Like, we know next to nothing about like the actual art of filmmaking. We just look into, you know, characters and acting and stuff like that.
Sure.
So, but yeah, well, I thought Ron Howard did a great job.
So here we go, Sam. I'm on Ron Howard's IMDb. I see he's got some TV series, a documentary, and then 4 movies, or what I assume to be movies. Yeah, they're all movies. With no timestamps on them. I'll just read the description. There's like 1 or 2 sentences. You tell me which one you want to keep of the 4. I mean, he's gonna do them all. Okay. You gotta tell me which one you want.
Okay.
All right. Seven Eves. A colony of survivors living in outer space try to return to Earth thousands of years after it was evacuated. Okay. So a little science fiction. The Fixer, a former FBI agent, is recruited to run a joint CIA/mafia mission to assassinate Fidel Castro. Okay.
Ooh.
The Girl Before, a woman falls for an architect and gets an eerie premonition about his house when she finds out that another woman died there. Okay. Or 13 Lives, a rescue mission is assembled in Thailand, where a group of young boys and their soccer coach are trapped in a system of underground caves that are flooding. Oh, okay, that's a true story. All right, Sam. True story.
I remember that. That was recent.
That was recent, like 2 years ago. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so you get science fiction, assassinating Fidel Castro, probably some sort of thriller with a girl finding out another woman died in her now architect husband house, or 13 Lives, soccer team. Which one do you want?
I would give me the thriller, I suppose.
The Girl Before?
I'm not. Yeah, I mean, yeah, The Girl Before, great title. That intrigues me. You know, the 7 Eves seems pretty interesting. And I mean, I guess I'd be moderately excited for that. You know, the Fidel Castro thing, I'm getting a little tired of kind of these historical Cold War based on a true story type things. You know, the Bridge of Spies.
The Fixer is an awful title too. I read that. I read The Fixer and said a former FBI agent is recruited to run a joint CIA mafia mission. And I said, holy crap, that sounds awful. And then I read Fidel Castro and I was like, okay, that's moderately interesting, but that sounds terrible, to be honest.
Right.
So, yeah, I would say.
What about you? Which one are you keeping?
We haven't really seen Ron Howard do a thriller, really. So that would be interesting. I'm thinking how did you pronounce it? 7 Eves? 7 Eves? I think I'd choose that one. I like science fiction. And that's interesting.
I'm reading right now. It's like one of these, it's like a Dune almost. Like it's a long science fiction novel type thing.
Maybe he shouldn't.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
maybe he shouldn't. I don't know.
It looks like 13 Lives is in pre-production. So it seems like we might get that one first. Interesting. Okay. All right. Well.
Okay.
Should we give some star ratings to Hillbilly Elegy, or do you have any wrap up thoughts or anything else you want to add?
Yeah, real quick. I want to hear your definitive.
Broke up there for a second, Sam. What was that?
Oh, sorry. Real quick. I just want to hear like some definitive Oscar predictions that you have for Hillbilly Elegy.
Okay, Hillbilly Elegy, Oscar predictions. It just seems like people don't like it critics don't like it, so I don't think it's in the picture contention. I don't think it has. Honestly, there's not much coming out this year, though. So maybe for some reason, maybe the Academy just like Ron Howard, and they're like, screw it, we're putting Hillbilly Elegy in as a 10th spot. I don't think so. But maybe. I think if anyone's going to be nominated for an Oscar, it'd be Glenn Close. You know, she had a couple moments where she was going for it. I played one of it in the trailer or clip at the beginning. You know, she was going for it at times. So I think if any acting, Glenn Close. Other than that, yeah, I could see this maybe just being a Glenn Close vehicle. You know, just her gets a nomination. I don't think this has any technical awards for it. Like you were saying, like the cinematography, while it might be good, it wasn't flashy or anything like that. So I'll say Glenn Close. That's my final answer. And that would be for supporting. I don't think she's winning, but I could see a nomination. What do you think?
I might be a little more optimistic than you. I really don't think this will get nominated for Best Picture. Just like you said, the critics are tearing it apart. But in terms of acting, I think Amy Adams will get a nomination. I think she should get a nomination.
Do you think
I thought her performance was phenomenal. What?
Do you think she is supporting or lead?
I think she's a lead. I think they'll give her a lead, and I think they'll give Glenn Close a swing.
Okay.
And then the other one, I don't think either will win. By the way, just because the movie, the Academy does not want to endorse the movie, you know, because they consider it bad. But I would also say, you know, maybe a nomination for Best Makeup.
Sure.
Because they really did up both of them quite well, you know. Glenn Close is unrecognizable. Amy Adams has to age, you know, about 20, 30 years in this film. And it works really well, you know.
Well, Amy Adams is absolutely beautiful. And she just looks a lot different in this, let's say. I could definitely see makeup. I hadn't thought of that. So, and you're right, Glenn Close. If you told me it was her and I didn't know, I wouldn't believe you. So, yeah, I definitely could see that. That's a good point. And yeah, that's makeup and hair. You're probably right. It would get nominated, and even bad movies sometimes win for makeup and hairstyling. I mean, we saw that with Suicide Squad and Bombshell last year. So, yeah, you're probably right. You're onto something there. But Sam, do you have anything else about Hillbilly Elegy before we give it some star ratings?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, I'll go first then. I'm going to go right down the middle, 2.5 stars. You know, I think I was disappointed. I thought it could have been a lot more. And it's not that it was really lacking anything, or it is that it was lacking something. Nothing in it was egregiously bad. Just it was missing extra pieces that took it, that could have taken it to the extra length. But what's your rating?
Right. Yeah, same here. I mean, 2.5 stars out of 5. I just think.
Oh, there. Lost you again, Sam, just for a second. But, you know,
and I guess stringent movie, you know, it kind of sticks to the basics of the story, doesn't try to expand too much. So, yeah, 2.5 stars out of 5.
All right. There you go. A pair of 2.5s. And it's probably worth a watch, I would say. You know, you're not going to, if it's a lazy day, I'd say Hillbilly Elegy is worth a watch and formulate your own opinion, because opinions are vast in this, that's for sure. Some people think this is the worst thing ever.
That is true.
But Sam, let's hit a recommendation for the week. I have one ready if you want me to go first.
Sure, go ahead.
You know, since we're talking about Ron Howard, I think Howard, you know, he'd probably be up there for one of my favorite directors. He'd be in the top 25 for my favorite directors. And one we didn't really talk about a lot, but one that I absolutely love of his is 2013's Rush with Chris Hemsworth, who is a beautiful individual, and Daniel Bruhl. So yeah, it's about Niki Lauda and Chris Hemsworth character's name, whom I am blanking on right now. It's a racing movie about those two and their competitiveness and in the 1980s ish. It's James Hunt, that's his name, Niki Lauda and James Hunt. It's their rivalry in the 80s in racing in Europe. And it's very well made, extremely good, and ton of fun. I think it should have been nominated for Best Picture that year. But so Rush by Ron Howard is my recommendation. Sam, what is yours?
Yeah, so I woke up this morning with a YouTube recommendation. Actually, YouTube recommended this to me. Nice. Just got released 6 days ago by Netflix Film Club, which is like one of the official Netflix YouTube channels. And it's called Criterion's The Making of the Irishman with Scorsese, Pacino, and Pesci. Basically, it's like I would say like a mini documentary. It's about 36 minutes long. And it's just kind of goes behind the scenes of 2019's The Irishman, how they got all the actors on board, and it's a nice insight on how Martin Scorsese directs. There's a lot of interesting interviews in there. So check out Criterion's The Making of the Irishman.
Oh, cool! Very nice.
YouTube. Yes.
Real quick before we talk about where you can find us online, Sam, I just want to let you know I did pick up The Big Goodbye at a library near me, and I will start reading it soon, and I'll have to let you know.
Did you really?
Yes. I figured,
yes.
I figured you'd be excited about that. I'll let you know what I think of it, and if I like it, it'll probably be a recommend on the show. So I'm excited to get reading that. That'll be fun, and we have that movie to look forward to as well. So that'll be good. That'll be fun. But
yes.
Until next time, Sam, where can I find you on Letterboxd?
You can find me on my recently upgraded Letterboxd account. I'm now a pro member of Letterboxd.com as of Black Friday.
Nice. Have you messed around with the stats yet?
Oh my God, the stats are so fun.
Oh, it's so cool. So cool.
So good. If you guys didn't cash in on the if you listeners didn't cash in on the Black Friday deal on the pro status of Letterboxd.com, well, better luck next year. But you can get it any time of year. It's just discounted on Black Friday. But yeah, it's worth a try. But anyway, you can find my new pro account on Letterboxd.com at letterboxd.com/sjdierberger. And where can I find you, Will?
You can find me on Letterboxd at willspalding. And you can find us in Hicktown, USA, or wherever they're at in Ohio. But if you're not over there, you can find us online at Those Film Nerds on any podcast platform and on YouTube or anchor.fm/Those Film Nerds, or Those Film Nerds on Instagram and at thosefilmnerds@gmail.com. If you have any show-related questions or movie-related questions or thoughts, send us our way. We would love to hear from you. But, Sam, until next time, keep watching movies. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Goodbye.